A hug is not just a gesture. It's a scan. It's a silent test. It's how a woman senses if you're solid or if you're empty. Have you felt it? That moment when she leans in, gives herself for a second, and then pulls away. She hugged you, but she didn't stay, because something in you didn't hold her. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most men don't know how to hug like a man. They hug like a child begging for affection, not like an adult projecting presence. And she notices. Today, I'm going to show you how to turn that simple act into a moment that leaves a mark. Not with cheap tricks, but with real energy. What you do with your arms, your gaze, your body can change everything. I'm Celia, and if you're here, it's because you're done being invisible. Stay until the end, because after this video, you'll never hug the same way again. Have you ever wondered why, after hugging her, she doesn't come back looking for you? Why some men make her sigh with just a touch, while you're left with the echo of her body pulling away? Listen closely, because what you're about to discover could change the way you connect forever. This is the first point of this video. Don't react like a boy. Respond like a man. The problem is simple, but brutal. When a woman hugs you, she's measuring something that isn't spoken. She's not looking for forced tenderness or awkward movements disguised as affection. She's looking for presence, a center, a pillar that doesn't waver. But most grown men I know don't get it. They collapse into the hug as if begging for affection, as if their energy is saying, "Love me, please," instead of, "I'm here, steady, whole." And to a woman, that's like hugging a shadow. There's no warmth, no strength, no direction, just emptiness. Let me put it this way. Imagine an old tree with deep roots that has withstood countless storms. Now imagine someone leaning against that tree seeking shade, seeking refuge. If the tree trembles, bends, creaks with every breeze, no one will stay beneath its branches, because it doesn't convey safety. It doesn't inspire rest. That's you when she hugs you and you respond with weak, anxious, fearful energy. No matter how many words you use afterward, you've already failed the first test. She doesn't rationalize it, but she feels it. Because a woman doesn't want to be your emotional mother. She wants a man who doesn't need comforting, but who projects a calmness so solid that even her chaos quiets down when she touches you. I remember a man, 72 years old, widowed, strong on the outside but shattered inside. He once told me, "Celia, I don't understand. I hug her with all my love and yet she pulls away." I replied, "Because the love you give sounds like begging, not presence." And that destroyed him. But it also woke him up, because he understood it wasn't about physical strength or age, but about inner energy. He changed his posture, his gaze, his breathing. He learned to hold, not cling. And the next time he hugged her, she didn't pull away. She looked at him differently, because now he was there, present, not begging, not depending, being a man, not a boy. So ask yourself honestly, how are you hugging her? From need or from strength? Because that moment when she wraps her arms around you is not a gift. It's a test. And if you fail, you won't get another chance. If what you saw in the first point made you uncomfortable, that's a good sign. Because if you start seeing yourself with honesty, without masks or excuses, then you can also start to change. And once you understand that a hug isn't a refuge for your insecurities, but an opportunity to project confidence, it's time to go even deeper. We've reached the second key point of this video, and it's the silent language that drives a woman crazy. This language isn't taught in school, nor is it inherited. It's not in your words or your intentions. It's in how you stand, how you breathe, how you hold the moment without losing control. In the world of psychology, this is called dominant nonverbal communication. It has nothing to do with being aggressive. It has everything to do with the quality of your energy, with your emotional presence. Because, whether you realize it or not, every time you hug a woman, you're telling her things without opening your mouth, and she hears it. Maybe not with her ears, but with her skin, with her instinct, with something no logic can explain, but her body knows how to interpret. Stoicism teaches us that the man who masters his inner world projects calm in the midst of chaos. And believe me, that's more seductive than any compliment or touch. When she approaches, she's not looking for explanations. She wants to feel that you don't waver, that you can hold the moment without anxiety, that you're not rushing to get to the next step or desperate to prolong it, that you can simply be there, like an oak tree, that doesn't flinch even when the wind surrounds it. But if you're restless, if your body trembles, if your breathing quickens, if your hands shake, or your gaze avoids hers, she feels it, and something inside her shuts down. Some men tell me, "Celia, I told her everything I felt." And I respond, "The problem is you said it with your mouth, but your body was saying something else." And women trust more in what they feel than in what they hear. Because when your energy and your words don't match, you become unreliable. And a woman will never give herself to someone she perceives as unstable. Do you understand how serious this is? It's not just that she doesn't believe you, it's that she can't trust you emotionally. And if there's no trust, there's no connection. It doesn't matter what you say, what you give, what you promise. That's why it's so urgent to work on your energy. I'm not talking about meditating under a tree or repeating positive affirmations in front of the mirror. I'm talking about truly knowing yourself, making peace with your past, stopping the constant search for approval, and starting to respect yourself. Because when you're good with yourself, it shows. And that, precisely that, is what a woman perceives as attractive in a hug. Not the size of your arms, but the size of your emotional center. Your ability to stay without urgency, without anxiety, without needing to prove anything. Now think about this. What does your silence communicate when you hug her? Is it an uncomfortable silence, full of insecurity, or a silence full of presence, of strength? If your silence speaks of fear, she feels it. But if your silence is filled with calm strength, I assure you, she won't want to let go. And this isn't a trick, it's a transformation. Because you're not acting to please. You're becoming someone who no longer needs to impress. You just need to be steady and clear. What comes next will be even more direct. Because if you've already mastered silence, now you'll have to master your gaze. And that's another level. You've already understood that your body speaks, even when you're silent, that your energy projects more than any words. But now we're moving to an even more powerful level. Because once you master silence, you reach the most intimate part of the hug, the gaze. And here we've reached the third point of this video, the eye contact that awakens her most primal instinct. There's a moment in every hug where the world stops. It's brief, almost imperceptible, but if you know how to see it and seize it, everything changes. It's that second when her head settles near your chest and, through a natural turn, her eyes meet yours. That's the moment. The bridge between the physical and the emotional. What you do there is no small detail. If you avoid her gaze, if you come across as anxious or lost, you're cutting the thread. But if you hold it, if you can look without fear, with steadiness, with depth, you awaken something beyond desire. You awaken security, attraction, and respect. I'm not talking about an empty stare, I'm talking about a gaze that says, I know who I am, I don't need to rush, and I'm here. A gaze that doesn't judge, doesn't beg, doesn't hide. It just is. Present. Steady. This is where the psychology of secure attachment comes into play. Women, especially after 40, are tired of empty words and broken promises. What they crave is emotional presence, and the gaze is the most direct mirror of your inner world. If you look with anxiety, you reveal lack. If you look with confidence, you project stability. It's that simple. It's that brutal. Let me explain it with a clear example. Imagine you're standing in front of a fire, not one that burns, but one that warms, that lights the way. If you look at it calmly, it gives you peace. You stay there, feeling safe. Now imagine that fire flickering, turning on and off, leaving you uncertain whether to trust it or back away. That's your gaze to her. If it conveys calmness, If you hold it without wavering, you invite her to stay. But if it's insecure or fearful, you push her away. And it doesn't matter how many times you tell her you care. You've already failed at the most intimate point. Here's the practical strategy. The next time you have her close, don't fill the silence with words. Don't look away or try to please her. Just hold. Take a deep breath. Look at her as if you already know who you are, as if you don't need her validation to feel valuable, because that's the gaze of a man who isn't lost, and that kind of man is unforgettable. You've already seen what a well-held gaze can do, how it transforms a moment into something etched in a woman's memory. But be careful, because a steady gaze means nothing if what you do next with your hands erases everything you achieved. And that brings us straight to the fourth point of this video. Your hands can make her fall in love or ruin everything. Here's where most men fall into the most absurd, yet most common trap, confusing desire with anxiety. Thinking that just because she's close, you have the right to touch her however you want. Thinking that if she doesn't pull away, it's an open invitation to invade her body with clumsiness. But let me tell you something uncomfortable. If you don't know how to handle your hands, you're not embracing her, you're scaring her away. And the worst part is, you don't even realize it. Because for many men, especially as they grow older, touching has become a reflex, not a conscious choice, an impulse rather than an act of presence. The trap is this: believing that physical contact must be immediate, constant, and obvious to have value. But in reality, the most powerful touch is the one that's measured, directed, that respects the silences of the body. When a woman hugs you, she's paying attention to everything. How you hold her, whether you grip her too tightly, whether your hands are gentle but sure, or if they feel desperate to possess. That's where you often kill the moment, not because you touch her too much, but because you touch her without awareness, without respect, without emotional understanding. And that doesn't attract, that disappoints. In psychological terms, this mistake has a name: projected emotional dysregulation. It's when your internal need pushes you to act without filtering, without restraint. And then your hands don't communicate desire. They communicate lack, a lack she feels as pressure, as obligation, as intrusion. And even if she doesn't say anything at that moment, she won't look at you the same way. She won't open up the same way, because a woman only surrenders when she feels understood. And for that, your hands need to speak the same language as your energy. I remember a scene I'll never forget. A man, around 65 years old, finally had the woman he'd been trying to win back for years in front of him. She, at last, embraced him. And instead of holding her calmly, he started caressing her with a mix of urgency and anxiety. She went still, cold. She ended the hug and said, "It's not what I thought." Why? Because that moment was sacred. And he turned it into an act of desperate need. He didn't know how to wait. He didn't know how to read the moment. And he lost the connection he had tried so hard to rebuild. The strategy here isn't to stop touching her. It's to learn to touch with intention. A steady hand on her back, without moving, can say more than 10 rushed caresses. An arm that wraps around her without squeezing can create more desire than an invasive hand. And if you don't know what to do with your hands, then do less, because physical silence can speak too. The problem is, many can't tolerate the emptiness, and out of fear of doing too little, they end up doing too much, and destroying the moment. So before you move, ask yourself, am I doing this for her, or because of my anxiety? Because if you can't control your impulses, you're not touching with desire, you're touching with neediness. And that doesn't make her fall in love. It pushes her away. What comes after this point will take you even deeper, because once you learn how to touch, you'll have to learn how to hold. And that's something very few men know how to do. You've made it this far understanding that your energy, your silence, your gaze, and your hands speak far more about you than any words ever could. But now, we're entering the deepest territory, where simply controlling your body is not enough. This is where true connection is built or destroyed beyond repair. You've reached the 5th point of this video, the masculine energy no woman forgets. And we're not talking about brute strength or shouting louder. We're talking about what you project when you do nothing, about what a woman feels when she's beside you, even when you haven't said a word. Do you know why so many older men end up alone, even if they have someone by their side? Because their energy no longer holds anything. They've become dull men, men with lowered eyes, slumped bodies, minds lost in guilt, excuses, or useless nostalgia. And that doesn't just kill desire, it kills respect. The masculine energy a woman never forgets is that of a man who doesn't need approval, who doesn't live to please, but to hold steady. A man who doesn't chase, who doesn't beg, who doesn't plead for affection. It's the man who stands his ground, who doesn't argue to be right, but who asserts presence to establish order. That man, when he embraces, doesn't need to squeeze. He doesn't need to invade. His mere presence conveys certainty, tranquility, that peace so many women seek, even when they can't put a name to it. The mistake most men make is falling into the trap of emotional dependence. They give too much, they yield too much, they offer themselves with the desperate hope of being accepted. But that doesn't create love, it creates suffocation. And when a woman feels you depend on her attention to feel valuable, she loses interest, because you're no longer being a man. You're being an overgrown child begging for affection, and that's not attractive, it's pathetic, harsh, but true. Now, can this be reversed? Yes, but not with motivational quotes or shallow changes. You need to rebuild your identity. You need to look at everything you've been carrying for years, guilt, failures, disappointments, and decide they will no longer define you. You need to start making decisions like a man, with direction, with emotional discipline, with the clarity that your worth doesn't depend on how others see you, but on how you hold yourself when no one is watching. The mindset you need to adopt is this: I am my own source of respect. Don't wait for her to give it to you. Don't wait for your children to acknowledge it. Self-respect is built in silence, through small, consistent and firm actions. From how you walk to how you say no, from how you take care of yourself to how you establish boundaries. And when that energy starts to take shape within you, you'll feel it, you'll stand taller, feel calmer, more present. And they will notice it too, because true masculinity isn't about boasting, it's about stability. So look at yourself in the mirror and answer with brutal honesty. What are you projecting when you walk into a room? What do others feel when you make your presence known? If what they feel is pity or indifference, something within you is dead. But if you can get them to see you as someone who commands respect without uttering a single word, then you don't need to do anything else, because your energy will speak for you. And believe me, that's something no woman forgets. If your energy has already changed, if you've started to reclaim that presence that commands respect and calm without raising your voice, then you've taken a huge step. But there's one more thing that can make all the difference between being a man who attracts and one who repels. Because no matter how strong you are, if you don't know how to use your words with surgical precision, you'll destroy everything you've built with so much effort. And that's why we've reached the 6th point of this video. The whisper that melts without needing cheesy words. I want you to picture this. You're in that intimate moment, holding her. There's silence. Your body projects steadiness. Your hands know where to rest. Your gaze holds her without fear. But then you lean in close to her ear and say something. What comes out of your mouth can either ignite a fire or extinguish it forever. Because it's not about what you say, but where you say it from. It's not the content, it's the intention. And this is where so many fall into the most common and embarrassing trap, repeating cheesy lines from romance novels, thinking that talking sweetly is the same as seducing. No, that doesn't melt her. That just makes her cringe. Women after 40, 50, they don't melt for a poorly delivered "I love you," or for "my queen," or for generic compliments. What melts them is a man who leans in and says something real, from his core, from his energy. Something like, I love how perfectly you fit right here while you hold her. Or simply, just like this, without talking, you're perfect. Short, direct, no embellishments, no fakeness, because if your voice trembles, if what you say doesn't match your body, she'll feel it and she'll cool down. You'll notice it in her back, in her breathing, in how she pulls away without saying a word. But if your voice is low, deep, calm, if you speak into her ear not to seduce but to confirm what she already feels, then the connection multiplies, and that woman won't forget you. Because you spoke to her ear, yes, but what you truly touched was her soul. You don't need to fill the silence with cheap poetry. You just need to say the right thing, what she needs to hear, without begging, without overdoing it. A well-spoken line in that moment can leave a mark for years, because you're not talking like someone trying to win her over. You're talking like someone who has already chosen her, and to a woman, that's worth more than 1,000 words. Now imagine the other scenario. It's you again in the hug, and you drop an insecure line, hesitant, childish, something like, "Do you like me? Do you feel good with me? I don't want you to leave." And that's when it all falls apart, because you just showed that you're not centered, that you're not a man, you're a child begging for affection. And do you know what women do with an emotional child? They pull away. They might comfort him at most, but they don't give themselves to him, because desire doesn't come from pity, it comes from magnetism. So before you open your mouth the next time you have her close, ask yourself this: am I about to say something that confirms my presence, or something that exposes my emptiness? Because if you're not sure, it's better to say nothing. In doubt, silence is worth more than 1,000 mistakes. But when you do know what to say it in her ear, with steadiness, with pause. And you'll see it doesn't need to be long or poetic, it just has to be real. If what you just heard made you realize how a single phrase can leave a mark on a woman, this final point is going to shake you. Because you could have done everything right: your presence, your gaze, your energy, your hands, even your words. But if you fail at what comes next, everything before becomes a faded memory. We've reached the 7th point of this video: how to hug to leave a mark, even if she walks away. Listen closely. Many men think the purpose of a hug is to make her stay, that if they do it right, she'll remain by their side. But no, the goal is not for her to stay. It's for her to never be able to forget you, even if she decides to leave. It's for your hug to carry so much emotional weight, so much authenticity, so much presence, that even if time passes and your paths diverge, something in her body remembers that moment, that warmth, that strength, that calm. Because a hug can be a goodbye, but it can also be a mark. And only men who have learned to be without depending, to give without begging, can achieve that. This is where everything you've learned is put to the test, because hugging isn't about holding on, it's about containing. And containing is not clinging, it's allowing. It's holding with steadiness, but without fear of letting go. And that requires emotional strength. It requires knowing that you are complete even if she leaves, that you don't need her to stay to feel like a man, that you don't depend on her response to validate your worth. That's what leaves a mark, when she feels that you're not begging her to stay, but offering her a space where she can simply be, without pressure, without guilt, without demands. Then, yes, that's when she wants to stay. But if you say goodbye with trembling hands, if you end the hug with anxiety, if your hands are saying, "Please, don't go," instead of "I was here, steady, and I will still be here even if you leave," then you ruin it. Because you reduce yourself to a man who doesn't know how to let go, and that, far from creating attachment, creates rejection. Harsh, but true. Think about this. How many times have you let fear make you hold on too tightly? How many times have you tried to cling to something that wasn't ready to stay? And in that attempt, you destroyed it. This final point is not about a technique. It's about who you are when you no longer have control. Because hugging well is also knowing how to let go. And when you do it from wholeness, from acceptance, from confidence, she won't forget it, because you weren't just another man. You were the only one who knew how to hold her without needing to possess her. Now look at yourself. Everything you've learned in this video is useless if you don't decide to apply it. No excuses. No, she's not giving me a chance. No, the opportunity is you. The change is you. The mark you leave doesn't depend on her. It depends on your presence, your steadiness, your ability to contain without depending. Because true power is not about making her stay. It's about making sure that if she leaves, she can never erase you from her soul. If you've made it this far, you're not like most, because most stay on the surface, get lost in excuses, turn off the video when things get uncomfortable. But not you. You faced every truth, every direct hit. And that already says something. You're ready to stop being just another man. Now, the decision is yours. Because this message wasn't meant to comfort you or give you empty hope. It was meant to show you what happens when a man lives asleep, and what can happen when he decides to wake up. What you do from now on will make all the difference. You can keep hugging the way you always have, with fear, with anxiety, with need. Or you can take everything you've heard and start building something different. Because this isn't about her, it's about you. About what you project, about what you hold steady, about what you leave in someone else even when you're no longer there. I want you to leave me a comment with a single phrase, "I left a mark." That's the essence of this entire video. Write it down and tell me where you're watching from, because this channel isn't about numbers or going viral. It's about real men who are tired of living halfway. I'm Celia, and this is House of Wisdom, a space for those who aren't afraid of the truth, for those willing to reclaim their dignity, their energy, their respect, without asking for permission. Subscribe if you haven't already, not to add another number, but to be part of this community that refuses to be manipulated, used, or forgotten. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, because sometimes a message like this can be the slap someone needs to stop crawling. And if this stirred something inside you, don't stop here. Watch the 2 videos that are about to appear on screen, because this conversation is just beginning. And believe me, what's coming could change your life.